the reason that I got into magic in the first place was because of my choking, gagging reaction to being constantly brainwashed through.
Welcome to the Conscious Rebel Podcast with your host, Lucy Morningstar.
For quite some time, I have witnessed hypocrisy in the New Age spirituality and life coaching industry. It happens when the spiritual business owner or coach advocates love and acceptance through their messaging, but they are very quick to call anyone who expresses opposing point of view bigots. So that is very ingenuine and hypocritical. So that's why I set out to find spiritual teachers and coaches and mentors who actually live what they preach, which is love, compassion, and acceptance. And that is why I am very happy to bring to you Rachel from Aeolian Heart. Rachel is an astrologer. Through these conversations, we talk about many controversial and also difficult topics, such as sexual liberation versus monogamy, dealing with a friend's suicide, the state of free speech we're in right now. And you will get to know Rachel as someone who serves from a place of love and integrity. And you will definitely enjoy this conversation, and hopefully you will learn some magical tools from Rachel to help you decondition your brain from the hive mind.
You tell us what you do.
Okay, well, my name is Rachel, and I am an astrologer. I write under the nom de plume Aeolian Heart. So Aeolian Heart Astrology is my business. I have been doing really frequent astrological forecasts and writing classes. So writing about astrology, teaching astrology for about 6.5 years now. And it's been the greatest adventure of my life, getting to actually do creative work that I love and write and teach about anything that I want to write and teach about. So I have been really blessed to be able to do this work, and it's what I've devoted myself to almost full time for the last 6.5 years. Up until 2019, I still was a private tutor. That was my other work in this world. I worked with children one-on-one. I'd go to their homes and teach them, but obviously I don't go to anyone's home anymore since 2020. So I am a full-time astrologer, and it's my greatest passion. It's my hobby, my passion, and my work. So that's what I do.
About your tutoring, what do you tutor? What subjects?
Oh, I used to tutor English and history, writing, a little bit, science and math for elementary school, middle school. I didn't go much higher than high school for math, but absolutely any subject for elementary school, middle school. But I always emphasized, English literature, history, things like that.
I think you'd be great at that, because I've read your emails. It's very good. It's like,
wonderful.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with tutoring English, history, arts. That would be, right up.
Yeah, that was my first.
You know what? You also send this weekly astrology audio, right? And I think it was not this week's, but last week's. There's something that really caught my attention, and I can't say I was surprised, because you do sometimes share a little bit of your private life with your husband, Andre, right? Yes. And I think he probably joined you sometimes in the weekly audio. I think he did that in the week before this week's. There was some. I saw you guys, I think you posted in the Patreon community your wedding photo, or you graduated together. It's like a photo.
We got married, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and one thing that really caught my attention that I just can't shake it out of my head from his part in the audio from 2 weeks ago, where he talked about how during your college times and that kind of stuff, right? That was back probably in the 90s, I would assume, 90s or early 2000, something like that. When was it?
The mid 2000s,
Yeah,
well, I got my master's degree in 2015. So, I was in college for a long time, for pretty much like, the noughties, just the span of the noughties, I went to college. So that's hard to say. I went to college a lot.
Yeah. Okay. The thing that caught my attention, I'll tell you, is that he talked about how college kids, probably a bit wild and just go like have a lot of partners and all of the time. And then he said he doubled down on monogamy, and that really caught my attention. Like that just wow, because probably like from my perspective, like I came from China, right? So and I could see. So I came to Australia in the 90s. And then when I visited China back, because that's when China, it was more like a closed country, and in the 80s started to open up. And so I was born in the 80s, and in the 90s, that's where kids I grew up with and went to college, that sort of stuff. And and also my cousin, who was 2 years younger than me, she was still in China. And I could see that I was at that time feeling a bit shocked, because as the economy was open up, everyone's kind of not a lot of people kind of have that Western American kind of culture influence, where it was like the good word is probably like sexual liberation, but I just felt like everyone was like having sex with a lot of different people a lot of the times. And I was shocked, but didn't have the probably consciousness to reflect much on that. And also there was just like, the Western people do that all the time. Doesn't the Western people do that all the time? So it's only when I heard Andre said that, and I say, wow, like for him, it's like a rebel in his own right, because that was actually what everyone was doing. And he was like not being part of that. So how did that represent any challenge for you guys, because you were so different?
Because well, what really drew us together was that we were both incredibly alienated and outcast, and we never actually fit in anywhere. And when we met each other, we were both like these kind of wild outliers in our friend circles that were always getting just a lot of criticism, a lot of projection, a lot of gaslighting. When I met Andre, he was so weird and he didn't know how to behave. One of the reasons why is because he didn't go to high school. He was raised Mormon, and then his mom took him out of high school because he used to get into too many fights in middle school. He'd get picked on all the time. In middle school, there was all these boys that would pick on him. And so instead of taking it, he decided to beat the shit out of them. So he got in really big trouble when he was 13, 14, before he had any brain development or any ability to control himself. So because of that, he was considered to be violent and dangerous, which is really sad because he's actually not, and he never really was, but he was getting picked on. He was getting physically threatened by other boys, so he fought back. So his mom took him out of high school. So when I met him, we were 18 years old. And so he was not socialized in any normal way. Like he didn't have any idea how you were supposed to act. He didn't know how to be cool. He didn't know how to fit in. He didn't know how to speak. He didn't know what the right way to act was at all. And I found he offended people all the time because he was really blunt and super honest. And he didn't suck up to the people that you were supposed to suck up to. And I found this to be so refreshing. I thought it was such a turn on that there was this like sort of, I guess, feral young man that actually was completely and totally himself. And so I was attracted to that because that's how I am, really at some level. I was never as gregarious as him. And I'm much more polite. I'm much more conscientious about social manners. I'm much more empathic in terms of thinking about how other people might feel. So I'm softer and gentler than him. But yeah, when we met each other, that was essentially the core of what brought us together. It's like, we do not fit in. and we're not doing things the way other people do them. So yeah, we've always stuck out because we've been a totally monogamous couple amongst like our peers, which is fine. I mean, we get along with everybody. We're extremely, we live in a major metropolitan area, and we've always found it kind of interesting that we are so normal from like a 1950s perspective. Like we're like old souls. Like we came from another era, and there's nothing we could do about it. And people either accept us for that or they don't, you know?
Yeah.
Amongst our friends, we are so weird for being like square. You know, we're extremely square in terms of just, we found each other, we got together, we love each other, we've stayed together. I've had no other significant love in my life. I've had no other significant man in my life. And Andre has the same situation with me, which is extremely unusual. And we don't know anybody else like that. So it's weird, but you know, we are who we are. So we just are like, hey, accept us for who we are and we will accept you.
That's amazing. Especially you guys were so aware of yourselves and so certain of yourselves from such an early young age.
Oh, you know, that's I wouldn't put it that way. I mean, I know what you mean, and that's a nice way to look at it. I feel like some of that was true. A lot of it came from, honestly, from a certain level of trauma. Like he had a very traumatic childhood, and I did too. Not as bad as him, but a lot of rapid. I wasn't fucking around when I was 18, 19 years old. I wasn't looking to flirt and date. I was like, if I'm going to tell somebody that I love them, I'm going to be it's going to mean something. I'm not going to just be lighthearted and flippant. And the reason why that was is because just like a year before I met Andre, when I was 17, one of my very good friends that I loved very dearly, I was so enamored with this young man. He killed himself.
Oh my God.
Killed himself. And it was traumatic for me because I loved him and he was, you know, so important to me. And to have him leave this earth in such a violent, tragic way made me grow up really fast in terms of what I was like after, what I was looking for in life. And I was like, after that, I just don't have the heart to even imagine, you know, dating casually or having a normal young life. Like I felt like all of that just died with this boy. Like his death made me grow up really, really fast in terms of how I looked at love and loyalty. And it was absolutely just serendipity or providence that I met Andre the next year. When I met Andre, I didn't want to date. I was like, I was so bereft. I was so messed up. I was so hurt. I wasn't looking for a boyfriend, but we became really good friends. And then we fell in love, which was really nice. And since then, I've just decided that if I continue to love this person, if I keep waking up every week, every month, and I still love this person, then why would I end it? Why would I go off and find someone new when I still love this person? I never get bored of him. I never get sick of him. I enjoy talking to him to this day. He still makes me laugh. We still have such a good time together. I appreciate just driving around, looking at, you know, beautiful scenery with him. I like going to, you know, take walks to the park. I like going on vacations. We run this business together. It's, you know, we're very, very, very close, and that hasn't changed. So it's rare. It's something I didn't expect, but when you have a gift and it's given to you in this life, no matter what it is, if it's a talent or a relationship with a lover or a parent or a sister, it doesn't matter. If you have like a gift given to you in this life of any kind, I think it's your job to take care of it, you know, and appreciate it. So that's how I look at it. I'm like, that's how I look at it. It's a gift that was given to me, and I try really hard not to take him for granted. And he did the same with me. So he was raised by his grandparents, and therefore, or mostly by his grandparents. And so he had within him these like super old world qualities. Like it was
Yeah.
like from another
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
And that is very unexpected from people in the astrology or the new age. You think them, to be even more like, they're almost just like, sometimes I feel a lot of people just like anti-tradition for the sake of being anti-tradition.
Yeah, that's true. Rebel without a cause kind of stuff for sure. That's a definite vibe out there. Living in LA, and I hang out with artists and ravers and, all kinds of edgy bohemian people. And there is that. There's also this just, we are living in a very strange time where
Very strange.
all the boundaries have been dissolved and everybody's kind of making up things as they go. We don't have so many things restraining us and holding us in. And I feel like despite the fact that I live this very traditional lifestyle in that way, like I fell in love as a teenage girl and I married this man, and that's the only serious relationship I've ever had. It's very traditional.
Yeah.
But I still feel like it's nice to have like the contrast of a highly experimental, kind of wild, chaotic world outside of that to give me balance and context. Like I feel like I'm sure that I have made my decisions based on my own inspiration and my own desires and my own sovereignty, rather than being like, am I doing this just because that's what I'm supposed to do? There's always that concern when life is when society conditions you to make certain choices, to follow certain paths. You have to do a lot of self-searching and self-reflection to know, am I doing this because I want to, or am I doing this because I think I have to? And the contrast of like just the status quo, normal style of dating now, normal style of seeking out love, it's so radically different than what I'm doing. I know that I'm not following conditioning. I know that this is just what I am doing. This is what I want. This is my choice. And that gives me a lot of solace. Like I really like it when I feel strongly connected to my choices as being born from my heart and my soul.
Yeah, I think speaking from my own personal experience, especially what happened in the last 2 years, is that contrast, I think, has becoming more and more distinct. It's like the extremes has been so further and further stretched. So the contrast is like more clearer and clearer. That actually helped me because I wasn't as conscious as you like from a young age. I would say for most of my life, 30 odd years, I was just like, as a young girl, I would be criticized by my parents as like a rebel and never listens and always talk back. And I think that, as a Chinese, that will be beaten out of you since you were young. Yeah. And the number one value was obedience. Chinese, East Asian. So I think, for a long time, I think even though I wanted to, be a bit more free, but just feel so constricted. And what I had been doing for a long time was just doing, like you say, what I should be doing, what I think I should be doing, right? To be more fit in. And I think also, especially as an immigrant, my mom is the first generation, I'm the second generation. And I think there's the mentality, like you come to someone else's place, you better behave. So even like I didn't know I was thinking that until, the last 2 years where the contrast, like you say, has given me space to really reflect. So for a long time, I just like, just be good and fit in. So I was doing a lot of what I should be doing. And it's only the last 2 years, especially last year, through the second half of last year, where I just like has way too much of this pushing down, what I really believe in, what I really, really feel about, what's right, what's wrong, and what's myself, all that kind of stuff, versus what I have been projecting and presenting myself and all this. it just really can't hold anymore. And that also reflected in the communities and the groups of people that especially I have associated with and become part of online, right? Our astrology community, the New Age community, the tarot community, all these, you know, and I felt so like at that time I felt devastated because I felt like it's more and more clear that what I believe in and my value is so different than the community that I have come like feel like I was finally part of, because for a long time I felt like I couldn't really say and be who I am in the physical world, and online kind of have some friends that share similar values, but then I decided, well, I saw that actually it's not the case, right? And I felt like, you know, the probably so-called liberals, and I think a lot of people get into New Age, tarot, astrology, a lot of people in that space, but they basically want to fight for the people, the common, like the people, against the powerful establishment, authority, and that kind of stuff. That's what the liberal kind of spirit is about, right? Empowering the people against the establishment. But I feel like the people that's supposed to fight the establishment and give power to the people, they are like policing the people for the establishment. Censoring is crazy. It's almost as bad as in CCP China.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have never been to China, but I feel that, yes, the value of free speech has been tremendously compromised, dissolved, destroyed by the culture of, you know, government influenced social media, of course. I mean, it's not a secret that the government is involved in what social media companies are doing. It's not a secret that politicians use social media to promote their point of view, their message, their agenda. And because of the nature of the hyper connectivity through mass media, it's very difficult to stand up for individual points of view. It's very difficult to protect individual voices because the nature of the mass media is to create a hive mind, and it's easily infected by thought viruses. It's easily infected by these waves, you know, these currents. Even if you just pull back and go, I don't care what the message is, I don't care what the agenda is, it doesn't matter if it's on the left or the right, it doesn't matter what it's saying, just look at how easy it is to infect the entire apparatus or the entire organism with one wave. You know, it's just so easy to make everybody swept up in a single notion,
just like what's happening with the war right now.
Right. It's a very scary time. It's really frightening because the mass mind that we see expressed through mass media, and that's everything from cable television to social media, it works directly for the government. And what the government is doing is not serving the people in any nation. I'm not just picking on the United States. The governments of this world are not looking out for the people. They're looking out for a very tiny sliver of elites. These are war criminals, warmongers. They do evil, inhuman things that do not represent any population in any democratic way, because there's nobody that I know that actually wants these endless, pointless wars. There's nobody that I know that actually is being represented right now by the people that are supposedly leading, or the people that are supposed to be reflecting the needs of the people. So, you know, that being said, the reason that I got into magic in the first place was because of my choking, gagging reaction to being constantly brainwashed through television when I was a child. You know, when I was a kid, it all came through television. And then the internet, you know, fine. And now it's the whole thing, you know, just all connected. So we'll just call it media, right? It doesn't really matter.
Just media.
Coming through every portal. And there's something trying to grab you and put you in a trance and implant messages into your subconscious everywhere you go. And
Rachel, I want to just interrupt and inject a bit of things when you talk about this, grab your attention, inject something. Yeah. I actually found out, in China, they have this WeChat, right? I think a lot of people know about the WeChat social media site. Basically, it's like your Twitter, your Facebook, and everything in one app. It also does payment and all that kind of thing. So the government even knows your password. Basically, it's very centralized. And all the articles, anyway, it's constantly 100% policing and censoring, right? For example, you can't even mention Winnie the Pooh because a joke came out that Xi Jinping, the president of China, looked like Winnie the Pooh. So you can't even mention Pooh or Winnie the Pooh. So it's completely censoring. So there are like the memes and the articles that they wrote, like 95 to 99% produced by appointed and paid what they call social media warriors or whatever. That we have the nickname, call them 50 cents, because it was like they were paid 50 cents for each kind of tweet or thing that they wrote, right? So there's an army of social media soldiers that actually make memes. And I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if like Facebook, Twitter, and all the social media memes that we see, they actually get viral, right? I wouldn't be surprised at all if like 90% of them are actually produced by army, like an army or armies of, those people that are actually getting paid to do it with specific agendas in mind for the manipulation.
No doubt. I mean, there's no way, I don't know about 90%. I mean, there's some really great memes out there like that are clearly made by people with a really good sense of humor. The way you could tell if it's made by someone who's from the government is if it's not funny. If it's not funny, it's probably made by somebody who works for the government or a corporation, Sense of humor is something that you can't actually fake it. You can't fake it. You could pretend to be telling the truth. You could pretend to care, but you cannot pretend to be funny. You're either funny or you're not. And so real humor comes from honesty. It comes from pain. It comes from honesty. And that's how you know if a meme is real. But as far as people who are hired to disseminate an agenda through any means necessary, of course, I mean, no doubt, that's any company. I mean, if Aeolian Heart gets bigger, I'll hire somebody to make some kind of social media presence for me so that I can relax while my message is getting out there. I mean, that is, if a small business, a creative entrepreneur does something like that, then most definitely these higher organizations with all of this, with endless.
But the thing is, Rachel, a lot of people actually believed in it. Like they've been indoctrinated enough, they actually have conviction and believe in the things that they're actually being paid to do. So when you can't say those people who are actually writing those memes that actually, wow, look good, makes sense, and that kind of thing. Like you can't say they actually don't believe in it being dishonest. Like just look at the communities that probably that we are in, right? The tarot community, astrology community. How many of them actually believed in the very, very, very leftist things? Like, and how many young students now actually believe in the socialist paradise, right? And like, because like a lot of things are actually, so talk about, even we just talk about, the socialist things, it's getting a little political, but like I do agree that a lot of things they said that's like really beautiful, right? There's no greed and all that kind of things. Like, of course, the what they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, something like that, right? Because it really is a beautiful image, ideal that a lot of people want. But I think one thing that really failed to take into account of is like they're actually just like, I think Jordan Peterson said like 3% of the population are actual psychopaths, right? So it's like, socialism, all these kind of things is great, but that is if everyone is nice and agreeable and kind and compassionate, and there's no sociopath. And it's just like Animal Farm. You have one pig there, it becomes all animals are equal and some animals become more equal, right? So that's why it doesn't work. But the people who, like there are a lot of people, good-hearted people, really nice people who actually believe, all these ideals. But I think they just don't grasp that there are actual psychopaths there. it's like you put a wolf in a pack of sheep, the sheep are going to get hurt.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good point, and you're absolutely right. It's very easy to cultivate belief through indoctrination, which happens through education and media. And I have beliefs that have been conditioned by these things that I haven't discovered yet. So I'm not saying that I'm not above it and I'm not immune to it. We start to believe, basically, when you read something, you believe it, at least for a moment. No matter what it is, there's a moment while you believe it because you're reading it, and it's going into the mind. And before the filters and the critique and the past experience and everything that we have as a filter begins to actually work on that material, for a few seconds, for a few minutes, you believe everything that you read. And it's very easy to believe people who are in authority that speak from that place of authority. So that's doctors, professors, anything that you deem to be an authority. It's just human nature. And it's when you combine that with your genuine emotional nature. So when you combine that with your desire to be a good person, to help others, to nurture, to have goodwill, to make the world a better place, it's natural to believe things that claim to be supporting that. But back to why did I start practicing magic? It wasn't actually, I cast a love spell when I was 15. I did that, but that was not my actual desire to get into magic. That was just a desperate teenage girl thing. Yeah, it was just a desperate teenage girl thing. And then I put it down. I was like, whatever, but I actually got into magic in college, like when I was 20, 21, 22, because I wanted some method of deconditioning myself. I was interested in getting back to some kind of sense of a blank slate, even though that's impossible, getting back to some kind of center that's in between all of the polarities. I wanted to have the gift of flexibility, mentally flexible, so that even if I'm in a class where my professor is espousing an ideology, it doesn't matter what side it's on, just like they're espousing this ideology. Even if I'm in a class and I get really, really involved in that, and let's say it starts pushing on emotional buttons and I start getting kind of swept up in it, I still have the power to get swept up, get involved, and then pull myself back. And not necessarily put my faith in that, not necessarily believe that fully. At least not before I look at the other side, and maybe a few other options as well. Just having an open mind essentially is what I was after. And so for me, magic was always about trying to strengthen my mind and my heart so that I didn't get torn apart by ideological wars, which I have been witness to my entire life. And it gets extremely ugly. It's gotten uglier and uglier and uglier because the hyperconnectivity of media and the force of the messages trying to polarize people is just getting stronger and stronger, right? Like, so my opinion is that when you practice magic, you should not claim to be a leftist or on the right. You shouldn't claim that. You should actually say, I keep an open mind. I keep an open mind. I am willing to listen to both sides genuinely. I'm willing to read a publication that is on this side. I'm willing to read a publication on that side and let myself take it all in without freaking out and making an alliance with either side. Now, this does not mean that I'm trying to say you should become amoral. There are things that are truly right and wrong in this world. Like murder is wrong, rape is wrong. It's wrong for people to be starving. It's wrong to go to war for no fucking reason. It's wrong. There are things that are just like universally right and wrong. And I do believe in that. So it's not like I'm trying to get to some amoral center of an amoral gray area that has no feelings, not at all. But to get swept up in this polarization, whether it's political or, it's all political, I guess, at some level.
At the end of the day, their agenda is to divide people.
But people get, oh my God, they get polarized about, some things are really important and some things are so dumb, but they still do it. Like Marvel versus DC. I'm not kidding. I've seen, like, it's all men, of course. I've never met a woman who was like this, but I've met grown men that have a serious chip on their shoulder about either Marvel or DC, depending on what side they've chosen.
That's
And
just
they're
for fun,
all,
right?
I mean, kind of. Right? I mean, you would think, but actually no, because like real anger and like real righteousness and real like snobbery comes to the
Oh my.
forefront. No, but it's like a microcosm.
Well, sure, with football teams and soccer teams, right? They even will get in real violent fight if their team loses, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's this, it feels so good to have a side. It feels so good to be right. It feels so good to have a tribe. It feels so good. It's human, you know, it's not inhuman, it's totally human, but it's dangerous, especially in the times we're living in, to let yourself get divided or separated from others. And that's how I look at it. Because I go, as far as you know, in the United States right now, and I guess in Australia as well, the divide between left and right. I'm like, I have all those people in my life. I have family members from both sides, and I have friends on both sides. And I refuse to betray anybody that I call my friends or family. I refuse to cut somebody out of my life just because they think, you know, like I just think it's so ill, it's so wrong.
I was never really into politics and that kind of stuff, so I feel a lot of people probably would be afraid to speak about it. I'm just gonna say it. It's probably gonna ruin you know, my career. But anyway, so the thing is about the transgender stuff. At the beginning, of course, I was like all for the LGBTQ and you can be whatever you want. But it's like when you say that the truth become really blurry, like what is actually, you know, I didn't think much about that. I just like all for people choosing their or what they want, blah, blah, blah. And then I started to feel like so things come out like how J.K. Rowling started getting canceled. And she got so much hate because she basically, well, my understanding of what she's doing is she wants to protect women and girls' rights. You don't want to go into a bathroom or your kids go into a bathroom or change room where there are a lot of biological male coming in, right? So, and so that's when I started to see, yeah, actually, I don't believe in 100% what the LGBTQ is saying, that way you can just be whatever you want. And lately, how more and more biological male athletes are now competing in the women's league, in the women's sport, and beating the shit out of the women, like either it's in physical martial arts competition or in the swimming recently. And I just think it's super unfair. I've listened to all these things about discussion on why transgender woman is a woman. Yeah, like, you know, and in terms of the athletic standards, how you have to take hormone suppressants for a year and blah, 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 all that kind of things. Okay, you know what? You're free to live however you want, but you can't force your subjective opinion what will on other people, especially going to compete in a women's sport. Have your only chance women's sport. Like, it's unfair for a big male, Leah Thomas, William Thomas. He just competed last year in the men's swimming, ranked 460 something, right? Just 1 year later, he didn't even have any chance, like surgical thing. And he even walked into the girls' change room dangling his dick. And this year competing in women's sport and came first place. If you live your life, fine. But it's not when you know you should know you have this physical biological advantage and you go compete with women. Like, but when I said that online, I got canceled and deleted by a lot of people in my community that even bought paintings from me before. Because of this, a lot of people might be reluctant to speak out.
Yes, conformity is a very strong gravitational pull, you know. Most people go with where the power is in a given time, unfortunately. Regarding this particular issue, I don't know the story specifically, but it sounds very extreme.
It is very extreme.
It sounds
but it's
like
not that rare. It's not that rare.
Well, this sounds extremely unfair, and it seems that it's really getting it's losing its thesis from the original human rights issue. The only way that I can relate to this personally is, and it might sound like it's a little off topic, but this is how I understand these kinds of issues. Like, I've been a vegetarian my whole life since I was 4 years old.
Wow.
Yes, and it means a lot to me. I am very, very devoted to being a vegetarian. It's very spiritual, it's deeply emotional, it's a very deep decision, and I've always been that way. So you could say I was born that way at some level.
So you were weird from the start, like you said.
I guess, yeah. And so anyways, my parents were cool and they let me be that. They just let me be a vegetarian, and I still am. And when I was in elementary school, it was considered really uncool, and I got made fun of a lot. And I got made fun of all the time at birthday parties. I couldn't eat the other food the other kids were eating, and I should have caved. I should have given in and started eating meat just to fit in, but I didn't do it. I couldn't do it. I just was like, I am who I am, and you guys are just going to have to deal. But then when I entered high school, suddenly being a vegetarian was super cool. Like, it was a hip, awesome thing to do. And I got really excited at first because I'm like, look at me. I found a community. And I'm cool. I've been the vegetarian the longest. I'm like, whoa, I could be the leader of this crew. But they didn't have the same feelings about it as I did. What they wanted to do was use their veganism or their vegetarianism to shame other people and to cause all kinds of antagonism, aggression, shaming people for eating what they ate, shaming people's parents or grandmothers for cooking traditional meals, doing all of these really ugly things. And then I found out about PETA, the PETA organization, which is obviously, like, I really wanted to be a part of PETA and like love that movement. And PETA is great. They do a lot of great things, but there was a time when a lot of the activists that were working for PETA, they went so manic and crazy that they started attacking people that were wearing fur coats and stuff like that. So I have a heart for animals.
Physically attacking, or what do you mean attacking?
They would throw paint on them. Yeah, they would do all kinds of things. It was really, it was wrong. It was just straight up wrong, because that's not the answer to anything. And I understand their rage. I do. I understand their anger. I understand their desire to make a change, and I desire the same thing. So I understood where they were coming from on a deep emotional level, on a visceral level. However, I never really wanted my way of being, my life, the way I eat. I didn't want that to be a political thing. And to me, that really makes me like choke. It makes me gag. I'm like, oh God, it's actually not the way. It's not the way to use this thing that means a lot to me, that is who I am, to attack others and make other people feel angry or disempowered, or again, divided, because that just polarizes people. Now we've got people that are anti-vegan, and it's like, well, no wonder, because vegans are coming at them with this, like, with these weapons, and like trying to attack them, trying to shame them, trying to reach them through violence.
But why do you think that is? It's like everything that have like a vegan or vegetarian, they have a good cause, right? You don't want to harm the animals. But like, why do you think that we tend to even turn all these things that's supposed to start from a really good place into something that's like negative and violent and filled of propaganda and that kind of stuff? What is it that make us tend to do that?
Well, I mean, it's like that. It's just the warring instinct, people, they love to be right. They get self-righteous. They start acting. I mean, it's like supremacy. It's the idea of supremacy. If it's not racial supremacy or religious supremacy, it's some other idea that you're better than others. And therefore, those that are not like you they either need to convert, or they need to be removed from influence, So it's canceled. Exactly. Canceled is the word. So bringing this back to transgender, and I don't mean to be at all like, I don't mean to compare apples to oranges too much, but if I were transgender, I wouldn't like it that there is all of these wars going on in my name. I would be like, guys, this is not the way. Like, trying to do everything possible to make everybody angry and divide everybody, polarize everybody, offend everybody, antagonize, I don't think is healthy. I don't think that's a healthy way to have like a deep conversation about learning to accept people for who they are and allow people to live as they choose, which I do believe in very strongly. But I don't think that a lot of like political warring is actually the way. And I know it's funny because everybody thinks you need to be an activist for everything. Some things for sure. Some things for sure. You do need to stand up to the government and tell them that you don't support the war. You do need to be an activist at some levels. But when you're fighting other people, when you're not fighting the government, when you're not fighting an institution or a government organization, and you're just fighting fellow citizens, that's not activism.
I think that it is exactly what they're trying to do, where the establishment, they are like encouraging this. Like they're encouraging you. They basically manipulate you to fight against each other. Anyone with a logical mind, would like any sense at all, we know that the biological male, of course, has a physical advantage. That was why there's a man and woman sport in the first place, right? If any establishment actually just step in and just have a simple rule, there's none of this none of this would have happened. When you fight amongst yourselves, you can't unite to bring down the establishment and question it and set things right.
Of course. I mean, this is historically revealed in every century. Every empire that has sought to conquer a people has done this. The first time I ever read about this was in relationship to how the British actually conquered India. The British did not conquer India. Certainly, they certainly did go to war a little bit, but not really, because the British didn't want to get their hands dirty so much. What the British mostly did, and I know there are exceptions, so don't come for me, I'm making a generalization, but the genuine strategy that they had was get the natives of India to fight with each other. So they went in and they stirred up all kinds of divisions. They tore people apart and got them to kill each other. And then they would come in and pick up the pieces and say like, all right, we're in charge now. So divide and conquer, it's a strategy, and it works. It works every time. It would work if you did it to a family. It would work if you did it to a classroom. It would work if you do it to a country.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to be aware of that and not fall for it. Because that starts with each one of us. Like, we actually have a choice as to whether or not we're actually going to let ourselves be divided from other people. And I know that we all get incited. We all have our lines that get crossed. Everybody has certain limitations where it's like, if you cross that line, I'm going to get mad, and everybody has one. And everyone's buttons are getting pushed right now because there's so many, so extreme, and they're pushing us to the brink of sanity. So almost everybody is really on edge right now. However, to remember, like, you can't be divided from other people right now, no matter what the stories in the news are, because that is how they're separating us. I try to remember it this way, like, anyone that wants a natal chart reading is welcome to come to me. I don't care who you voted for, what your sexuality is, what your gender identity is, what you like to eat for dinner. I don't care. I will treat you exactly the same no matter what. And it's the same with, any situation in life where I'm working with people. And you have to be like that in your work, at least, or you should be, right? And so if you could be like that in your work, then why can't you just be like that? Like, you are allowed to have differences of opinion with people without feeling like you're opposed. You don't have to be antagonistic. You don't have to be oppositional. Like, I feel like it should be at least something like, I like this football team, you like that football team, but we come together because we both like football, even if we're on some, like, we both like football. It's really that simple. And I know it's not simple because, like I said, every one of us has our limits with how we can relate to somebody or feel compassion. We all get angry when we feel like somebody is ruining the world for us. And everybody feels that way against somebody right now, because there's somebody that's doing something that's ruining the world in our mind. But like, I guess this is the one thing that growing up in like the place that I've grown up in has been really good for us, because there really is every kind of person here. Like I said, I'm friends with every kind of person, and I can be friends with anyone. And that's how I keep on an even keel. I can't be friends with everyone, but I can be friends with anyone. And the other thing is, studying magic, which has given me a lot of tools to decondition myself from things that I had been programmed or conditioned to believe. And also the power to have a flexible mind, one that
what are those tools? Tell us, what are those tools?
Well, I mean,
decondition ourselves.
To decondition yourself. The first book I would recommend is reading Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson. Robert Anton Wilson I would call him a philosopher, but he was kind of an all-around, sort of like a 1960s Renaissance man who he used to write for magazines, and he was a short story author, and then he started doing psychedelics and studying magic, as people in the 60s did back then. And he left his good job in New York at the magazine and started like diving into quantum physics and psychology and magic and doing all these things. And he wrote these amazing books that are kind of his accounts of what he was going through, what the process was like for his consciousness. And one of the easiest suggestions, it's not even a ritual, it's just read magazines or now blogs from every point of view. Listen, if you're going to watch the news, listen to news from every perspective. Read publications that come from every perspective. This is also true when you're studying religion. And I took it upon myself to study religion in college, and I studied this is so helpful, because when you actually can when you can sincerely have respect for religion, you have to have respect for it first, because you can't come from the attitude that all religion is stupid and therefore all meaningless, and therefore it doesn't matter what the differences are or what the similarities are, because it's all stupid. There is that attitude in religious studies. I encountered it. But if you come from the premise of like, I have respect for religion and I'm interested in learning all about different paths, different cultures, different languages of soul, then you get this natural engraving within your heart that remains open to different ways of seeing things, different perspectives, different reasons for what we might call political beliefs. People have different different motivations. What is your motivation for believing that? Some people believe in the traditional family, and they have good reasons for that. It's their culture, it's their background, it's their heritage, and they are the kind of person that wants to bring that forward. And if within context of how many different points of view there are, you can have a very flexible mind. So that was the first thing that Robert Anton Wilson taught me to do. Just read widely and never let yourself get stuck, because if you find yourself just listening to one newscaster or reading one journalist's point of view, if you just do that, you start to brainwash yourself.
And I think also when you start to see all your friends talking about the same thing, agreeing on the same thing,
you get stuck in what he called a reality tunnel. Reality tunnel. And that's how human consciousness works. What you surround yourself with, what you read, what you're hearing creates confirmation bias, and therefore creating a filter, and you can't see outside of the filter. This is extreme now because of the fact that what does social media do? It actually has a history of all the things that you're looking at, shopping for, and it only shows you those things. And you have your friends list, and your friends list is biased because those are people that you're connected to for some reason, either that you have a common interest or you actually know each other and party together, whatever. Your friends' posts plus the things that you are interested in looking at create an echo chamber.
An echo chamber.
yeah, the things you like, the things you're interested in, the things you're reading about. And therefore you don't even realize it. It's unconscious, but nevertheless,
Yeah.
there's a reality tunnel that's been created for you. And when anybody disrupts that, you're like, what the hell? You're so wrong because you're outside of my reality tunnel.
Yeah.
So it's so important to remember that this is normal, and it is totally fine that that happens. It's okay that we have this capacity to get put into a reality tunnel. It's in fact important because sometimes we need to focus on something so intensely. We need something to become our whole world. You know, like if you're in school, if you're in a doctorate program and you're writing a thesis, you need everything that you're studying to become your whole world. You need it to become your reality tunnel. When you're, you know, pregnant and you're about to give birth, you need that process to become your reality. You can't handle anything outside of that. You need to focus. But when it comes to the way we relate to the world and relate to others, if we only get our information from one perspective, we're going to get locked onto that, and we won't be able to handle anything outside. We won't be able to attract anything outside. We'll begin to become completely conditioned by ourselves.
Yeah.
Because choices that we're making in what we read and listen to. And yeah, our friends contribute to this as well. Unless we have a strange friend that likes to, you know, offend us once in a while, ask us to grow, snap us out of our complacency. And once in a while, you do have a friend that will do that, that will actually tell you like, hey, you're wrong. Like you're wrong, or you're way too naive about this. Let me tell you how I see it. Once in a while, you'll have a friend like that. But most of the time, our friends just want to confirm.
Yeah. Like voices in the echo chamber.
Echo chamber. So get out of the echo chamber. It's so, so important. So when the next thing to do, anything that you do that turns you inward, obviously meditation, it helps you to begin to listen to your own soul, right? To the stillness within, still small voice, all of that is in there. And that is your own guidance system that you were born with. And this is my opinion, but this is how I see it. You were born with your own guidance, with your own sovereignty. You were born to be free and thinking and reasoning, and you have your own imaginative process as well as your own conscience to help you to follow your path in life. And I feel like we have so much in common with one another as humans. We have a lot in common. We have a lot of similar interests, similar needs, similar dreams, but each one of us is nevertheless unique. And our DNA proves that, our astrology chart proves that, our fingerprints prove it, our irises prove it. Each one of us is unique, nevertheless, similar, but unique.
Yeah.
And so the voice inside of you that is there to guide you is unique as well, for sure. So one thing that is really, and the reason why I'm an astrologer is because, you know, your natal chart is a revelation of what you could be if you were whole and not polarized, what you are actually, what you were born to be, which is not to serve a single point of view or a single ideology, not to become subservient to other people's notions of who you are, not to become enslaved by the politics of your time or the trends of your time, instead to be, you know, Jesus said, in the world, but not of the world. And I love that. I don't think it's ever been said better. You don't want to be ignorant of the world. It's not cool to just run away and hide and pretend like you have no idea what's going on. It's not cool to disengage and disconnect and just go off grid and ignore everybody. That's useless. But it is important to not let the world pull you and push you in every single change in the current cannot be taking you with it. You have to make your own choices. If you don't want to go with the world, you don't have to. Oh, hi, Kitty. You know, like we have our own guidance system. We know what's right and we know what's wrong. And that can be easily overtaken. And this is what's so scary. And this is why it's so serious. You can be overtaken by other people's agendas.
Yeah.
And the best example is Nazi Germany. And it sounds but you can be. And there's way more examples than that, but that's just the one that gets everybody in the gut. Like, oh my God. But yeah, average people, average citizens, good people of Germany were going along with that.
Well,
They
yeah,
were
same with in the Cultural Revolution in China.
right.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. It's so scary to know that that could happen to you. And that's why I started taking this stuff seriously. So I was like, well, what if something of a similar nature happens in my lifetime and maybe I don't know it's wrong and I go along with it, or I know it's wrong, but I go along with it anyway because I'm too afraid.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't live with myself. The first one is the scariest. Like, what if I'm doing something evil and I don't even know it? That's the scariest. Be totally unconscious and possessed by the sort of the zeitgeist of your time. That can happen if you're unconscious, totally unconscious. That will happen. Knowing something's wrong and being afraid, that's the struggle. Everybody has their limits. Again, like each one of us could be put in a position where the pressure is too much and we can't find the strength or we can't find the courage. But I still think it's important to try to imagine that you'll have the courage to do what's right, no matter what. And that's something you can prepare for with magical practice. You could prepare for that. And the way that you prepare for that is getting very grounded in who you actually are by knowing that inner world, hearing your own guidance. And by the way, this does not make you antisocial, and it doesn't cut you off from anybody, because it shouldn't be dividing you from anyone unless somebody has a serious problem with you connecting to this part of yourself. And that does happen. There are religious fanatics out there that can't handle you on a path that's not dogmatically regimented.
So Rachel, tell us, if we want to find out more about our purpose, to just get a bit of that grounding, we can get a natal chart reading. How can we find you?
My website is aeolianheart.com. I am giving natal chart readings to people that subscribe to my newsletter. So be sure to subscribe if you're interested in reading my articles. You'll get them delivered straight to your inbox. Often enough, I send out monthly forecasts right now, plus a lot of updates in between based on important transits, if there's an eclipse, things like that. So I'll keep you in the loop of what's going on with the astrology. And if you are on my list, then you'll get access to the opportunity to book a reading with me, which is an awesome experience because your natal chart is a circle and it represents wholeness, the wholeness of your being. It's not just a sliver of you. It's not just one part of you that we like and we ignore the other parts. It's the whole thing. And it's all for a purpose. Everything that you have within you is revealed to have a great purpose. And that's what's so important and so healing about it. And every natal chart is actually beautiful, just the way that every leaf is beautiful or every shell is beautiful. No, it's true. Like, because it's an organic object. It's an organic pattern. It's created by nature, meaning that it's a pattern that we draw based upon where the planets were and the fixed stars, where they were when you were born. So it actually is like a thing of organic beauty, and it reveals that quality of your soul, as well as the things that have grown from your soul. So we go from deep, deep place, your soul, all the way out to personality, behavior, psychology. And then it can also reflect upon what stage of development you're in, what life cycle you're in, what stage of growth, what season of growth you're in your life. Because as we all know, nature is all cycles and ebbs and flows. And so that is true with astrology as well. And we can see what is rising in your chart, what's coming forth, what's increasing, and we can also see what's declining, what's receding. And it's so helpful to know what's rising and falling, because really helps you to strategize. It really helps you to contextualize what's going on in your life. It helps you to make good plans. It really helps you to be more graceful with the way you're moving through life. And I do offer 3 to 6 month astrology mentorship packages, which is where I work with you for an entire season, either 3 months or 6 months, to make any kind of transformation that you desire. It's totally personalized. There's not just one area of life I focus on, because the natal chart contains everything. So whatever a client wants to work on, whether it's money or relationships or creativity, a business, that's what I help them to develop. That's what I help them to evolve. And it's a beautiful process. It's amazing. It's super deep dive and
So
intimate.
it's not just like a coaching program. It's working with your natal chart in that program.
Exactly.
Sounds
exactly.
so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well,